The RDIOS Leadership Conversation with Amber Mann Riggs and Israel Steinmetz, answering questions leaders are asking.
Culture is one of these hot topics today, but when Christians seem to talk about culture, it seems like sometimes we talk about there's church culture and then there's worldly culture, and never the two shall meet. But is that really realistic?
It's not realistic at all. It's not realistic at all. Because
why isn't it realistic, Israel?
Because so much of, almost 100% of church culture is shaped by worldly culture.
Do tell.
But also there's the attitude that comes with that distinction, that church culture is holy and worldly culture is sinful, and that we have to avoid everything out in this worldly culture. And that's not a good understanding of culture either. So really it gets to a definition of culture.
Okay.
What is culture?
So what is a good understanding of culture? What is culture?
Culture is so huge, it's hard to define. Because culture is... I didn't know I was that funny.
You're hilarious. Okay. So huge is hard to
Culture-
define. Maybe we're going to define it anyhow.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to try it.
Okay.
Culture is everything that makes up a unique society.
Okay.
So when you think in those terms, we're talking about history, language, art, customs, geography, entertainment, religions, philosophies, everything that makes up a unique society. So in that sense, it is true that the church can and does have a unique culture. And it's unique, in some ways, it's unique to each local congregation. But those local congregations find themselves within a larger church culture, which is within a larger surrounding national culture, ethnic culture. Culture, again, it's everything that makes up a unique society. So for us in the United States of America, we are part of USA culture. And it is both shaping us and being shaped by us. And it's incredibly complex.
So what are some examples of just general USA culture?
Okay, you're gonna think that I'm dodging the question, and I'm not. United States culture is McDonald's. United States
okay.
culture is Christianity. United States culture is paved roads, the English language, ethnic diversity,
Connectivity?
connectivity, and individualism.
I meant connectivity as far as like the internet has shaped.
Technological.
Technical,
Oh yeah.
technological.
The internet is a huge shaping force within our culture, and the internet was shaped by other forces in our culture, like our drive to invent, our drive to produce. Again, culture is huge, so it's the music, it's the currency, it's everything that makes up our society is culture. When we see culture that way, we realize how inadequate it is to label culture as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Culture, I've compared it to a Jackson Pollock painting. So Jackson Pollock paintings, a lot of his paintings look like, well, what he did. It looks like he grabbed paint and threw it on the wall, and then grabbed a different color and threw it on the wall. And so by the end of it, you have this painting which just looks like smattering and sprayed paint of all different colors all mixed up together. That's what we should think of when we think of culture. And each of those colors represents a unique part of the culture, and each of those colors would have to be parsed out individually to answer the question, is this representative of God's good design for humanity, or is this representative of some deformity, some twisting of that design?
So let me ask you a question. So one component of our culture is the fact that if we want something, I mean, if I want to know any piece of information at all I have to do is, go ask Google, and Google will tell me that answer. And I've become so accustomed to, when I want to know something, I don't have to wait. I don't have to write someone a letter or go to a library and find an encyclopedia to look it up. That information is right there at my fingertips. And I've become so accustomed to, if I have a question, getting the answer right away. Well, I bring that expectation into my relationships, into what we would consider church culture. Because all of a sudden, you know, if I have a question that's related to, you know, let's say something church related. I hate to separate church culture. I hate to do it that way. But just for the sake of, you know, let's say I'm working on planning a worship set, and I know that because it's possible that I have to have the music to everyone like right away. Someone sends me a text having a question, I am expected to answer quickly, or else it's too long. That's an example of how we really can't separate things.
Sure, instant gratification is part of our culture. We want things now. We want immediate results. And that does obviously impact the way that we relate to each other, even as believers, even in the work of the church corporately. It also impacts our expectations in terms of personal transformation, in terms of preaching, etc. So,
God, I want patience and I want it right now.
I want patience and I want it right now, but I want to be transformed right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be informed right now. One thing I would just mention along those lines, and I don't want to get too far off track here, but we do live in a culture where if you have a question, you type it in and Google gives you the answer. But what we're really saying is that we are trusting our question to this incredibly complex algorithm that curates information for us and gives us what it believes to be the most relevant answer to our question. What we are getting instantly is not the whole answer to our question. What we are getting instantly is a very carefully selected, tiny sliver of information about what we're asking, and that's being supplied to us by an enormous technology firm that has its own values and its own way of operating and its own way of shaping and being shaped by culture. So we have this expectation. It's the same, you could compare it to fast food. To say, well, we want instant gratification, so we stick food in a microwave, or we go to McDonald's and we get our food in 2 minutes. Yes, you can say that you got your food in 2 minutes, or you can reevaluate what food is. You can ask yourself, how much of what they just gave me in 2 minutes is actually food? What is the impact of that food on my existence as a human being? What is the impact of that food on the existence of other human beings? What's the impact of the amount of money I'm spending, or in some cases not spending, to get that convenience and speed? So yes, we have this instant gratification society, but it's also, in the process, it's building the myth that what we get instantly is as good as what we might get if we waited longer, worked harder, we're more patient, we're more open to getting more than the most immediate thing. We live in a culture that values our impulses over our intentions.